Hello and welcome back to another Reddit League matchup. This week we are still in week 6. We're still in Lithuania, and today for our matchup we've got Carp and Heddicmi, and I am joined by Lunacy. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm excited for this one because this is my division.
Yeah, it is. Um, you've got you have played the seed before. You know what it might entail. But before we get to it, let's talk a little bit about Lithuania. What's your opinions about this Lithuania map in particular and Lithuania in general?
Well, before I answer, how many Lithuanians will be watching this stream or watching this episode? Um, I think that this country is in general not the easiest to play because if it's like sort of unlimited time, I feel like there's enough like long roads with signage or like those are the only ones that are covered that eventually you'll find something. The question is whether you'll find something useful within the time limit. And there certainly is a lot of rural landscape in Lithuania that can be a little bit tough to navigate through or figure out what the right way to go is. But I mean, that's all on the map. I'm just glad it's not like a full Baltic map where not only would you have to figure out where you are, but you have to decide which of the countries you're in. At least it's like this is the right country.
Yeah, I feel like it's not going to help you in most situations there, because it's still too big to really find like a small village. Although, I mean, if you've got a village name, you've got the country pretty much. So I don't actually think it would make much of a difference if you had to decide between which of the three countries it is, because I mean, you're gonna drop a lot of points either way. But yeah, I mean, it could be an interesting game. I think if you look at the table, Carp should be who is favored for this one, but yeah, as you said, Lithuania can have these rounds where you're in the middle of nowhere and maybe one direction is just better than the other. And it's definitely a good map for some upsets here or there. But let's take a look then at what this matchup offers us as we get into round number 1 now. And
All right, yeah, as expected, we're starting off in a long straight road.
True,
um,
but it does have
yeah,
asphalt on it, so it might have some signs somewhere too.
yeah, that's a good point. You can often tell how likely it is you'll find a clue based on the quality of the road you're on.
And there we go. 10
Yep,
kilometers to
Carp is
Ropishkis and 33 to Kupishkis.
Yep. Carp has found a good sign there. Heddicmi has found a sign for the town or village that they started in, which will be good for pinpointing. Carp here just getting the general location after, I believe, finding the right two cities.
Yep. He's got a sign towards the town he's come from as well, which is right where he's got his marker. There we go.
Very lucky. Yeah. Honestly, being able to just like figure out how to triangulate between distances you see is a skill in itself.
Absolutely. Can be a very difficult one too. In this scenario, if there's just one road connecting the two places, it's usually not too difficult if you've got some additional info as well. But there's these rounds where it's just like, well, I mean, there's like 7 roads between the two, and if you're unlucky, you are somewhere where you just wouldn't expect to be. As Heddicmi hit a
Yeah.
dead end and has to turn around, which might be annoying to him in the moment, but he'll soon figure out that was the best decision, the best thing that could have happened to him.
Yeah, I was gonna say Enigma just basically did the same thing I did when I played the Seed, which was like spend 2 minutes in like going into the town itself and being like, ooh, that's like a pretty big church building. Maybe that'll show up, realizing it's a dead end, going the other way and being like, oh yeah, this was better.
Yep, there we go. Now he's finally maneuvered himself into a position where he can read the signs.
Yep. And hopefully it won't be too long before he can find those cities too, because those are some pretty big towns, as
Yes.
we can tell from the fact that Carp found them in about 5 seconds.
Well, it actually took Carp a little bit. So I can at least from just this, I can say that neither of them practiced a lot in Lithuania. Because those are two fairly recognizable cities if you've practiced quite a bit. And it took both of them a little bit of time to find them, but they are both getting there. And that's not quite the town that. Oh, wait, was it? Are there two towns of the same name right next to each other, or am I just confusing?
Google Maps might be like doing the thing where sometimes it just accidentally shows the wrong thing somewhere, but uh I don't actually know what's going on there.
Yeah, it is a bit weird because that's the right one over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe it extends. Yeah. Hopefully just like looking at the road angle and the fact that they did spawn like relatively close to sort of some off-roads, that this isn't going to be that's the right part of
Yeah,
this potentially very expansive town. And now
yeah.
I think me and Carp both have generally the right area. They're
Well,
not going to lose too many points
Carp is
unless
already
one of them does something
pinpointed,
stupid. Oh,
and
whoops.
he's already
I
done.
totally missed that.
Yeah, he very quickly went on to the next round.
My bad. I was too engrossed by Heddicmi's adventure between the two towns of the same name.
I can't blame you. It is a very, very thrilling adventure he's having, but it seems like it's coming to a happy conclusion of him, at least being close to the right location. I'm not sure about the pinpoint exactly yet, but he won't drop many points, if any.
Yeah, and with the timer running out, we'll see that he also does get a 5K.
Yep. Good start for both of them here.
Yeah, it's not a huge country, so getting pretty close in order to get a 5K is pretty important. And the fact that a lot of these roads are pretty long and straight means that you might have to resort to some strategies like click counting or just like trying to match up with houses in the distance, as has been the case with a number of maps this season. But seems like this round in particular wasn't too tough for either of them.
Yeah, and we've still got 4 more rounds to go that could throw some curveballs in, so let's get into round number 2 right now. And again, though, looks like a pretty decent road, and there's immediately some signage here, but maybe not the most
Yeah,
useful.
speaking of curveballs, they do start on a curve that'll allow them to pinpoint where they are. I hope that neither of them does what I did and like tries to scan for any of the places that you can see on the signs, because those particular kinds of signs where like you have like the white you're leaving or entering this town and then like a blue town just like off in the distance, those are almost like those are going to be a lot harder to find than if you see something like that has distances to places like this, distance to places that are reasonably far away, because instead of having a sign that's pointing out the next town over, as those like blue stacked on white signs are, these just like all blue ones with distances are going to be a lot more helpful and usually point out places that are a lot more major.
Yeah, in this case, Tertiaia and Plunge are both pretty major towns, and Carp has already pretty much got the location down. Again, you can see Heddicmi there, probably no practice whatsoever, not recognizing those cities. They are pretty big on his screen right there, so I have no doubts he's gonna find them if he keeps looking for them. But yeah, again, a bit behind, and I do think he is going to continue traveling somewhere, as Carp casually 5Ks the next round.
Yep, 10K for Carp so far. Very good start. Let's see if Heddicmi can match it.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
sorry.
Just wanted to add to your point earlier. I do think the town exit signs are very useful occasionally. The problem you have with them mostly is that they just generally point you to the next city, irregardless of if it's big or not. It's just like, okay, this city is that way, and so it can be quite tricky to tell whether it's like any relevant if you don't recognize the name of it. But any sign is better than no sign. You just can't. Basically, if it says a number that's lower than 10 or 15 and you don't recognize it, don't go looking for it.
Yeah, that's the kind of instinct that, perhaps a bit more practice in this kind of map might allow you to build up. But that said, Heddicmi has managed to find the towns and find the general small town that he started, and so all he has to do now is figure out the curve and the pinpoint.
Yep. And seems pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, the little lake that is to his north is not on the map. But
yeah, come on, Google, get your act together.
yeah, the river is fairly close by, which should make it easy to realize which curve it is. Not named on the map, of course, because, who needs names? Um, but yeah, it shouldn't be too big of a problem.
Yeah, and the nearby houses should allow Heddicmi to pretty efficiently get this 5k if he chooses to use them as a pinpointing method.
Yeah, he seems to. He's wiggling his mouse over them. Seems to.
Just to indicate, yeah, just to indicate that that's what he's doing. I also like that he has in the corner like a label that says "moi," as in like, who is this person in the? Oh no, it's him actually.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah, the mystery's been solved.
Seems to be completely ignoring kind of like the direction of the curve at the start, which you'll see a lot of players using, which might help him with the pinpoint, but doesn't seem to need it for this at least, as he gets his second 5k.
Yeah, a single digit number of meters away is always a pretty good feeling, especially on like a road that isn't necessarily designed to be pinpointable.
Hmm. Yeah, so we've got pretty good rounds from them so far, but also, if you're kind of talking ease of finding in Lithuania, it's more so like a free of, well, I'm going the wrong way here. It's like it's pretty easy to find is what I'm getting at. And some of the other free rounds might not be quite as nice. So we'll see, hopefully. I mean, if they get 3 more rounds like this, maybe we'll just see both of them 25k, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more of a challenge in some of the coming
This
rounds.
is a literary device known as foreshadowing.
Maybe. We'll get into round 3 right now. And, well,
Uh,
that's not
well,
a paved road.
yeah, all I have to say is good luck 5K'ing this one. It not only is long, straight, and a dirt road, which means it might be a little harder to find on the map, it also seems like there's very few features visible from the start that might allow you to figure out where you might be on that road.
Yep. And all of that is if you manage to get information quickly enough to actually have any time left for pinpointing.
Yeah, and so in a map like this, there always is a bit of tension between whether or not you want to choose to like stop at every sign you see. Like a Heddicmi is stopping to read that like giant like I don't know what it is, like a zoning notice or something. I don't know. Whereas Carp is taking a look at some signs and sort of barreling forward more efficiently to maybe find arrows to place he knows. I think honestly both strategies can be valid, especially if you might be more familiar with Lithuanian cities. Those kinds of like large billboards might help you if you can identify strings of characters that match cities you know. But if we are under the assumption that these players might not be as practiced, that might not be as helpful.
Yeah, I think it's just very important to be able to tell quickly whether a sign is worth it. That's like one of the most important skills when playing like moving GeoGuessr is just being able to tell, okay, this sign might have some information, I'm gonna take a look at it. Or if you just say, okay, this sign's probably not gonna have anything, I'll just ignore it to begin with. Because I see a lot of players just like take 1 or 2 seconds looking at signs that, kind of obviously don't have any good information. And that's just like, 2 wasted seconds that would have potentially been better spent elsewhere.
Yeah, the most painful thing I think too is when you see a sign that looks like it might have something, but it's blurred, and you spend like 20 seconds trying to angle
Mm,
yourself into a position where it's unblurred. And I've seen like both of these players do that at times. Heddicmi's done it a couple times in this cast. Um, it is not the best feeling in the world, to like spend lots of time figuring out what a sign says and then realizing it just says like Zona Urbana or something.
yeah.
Um, but that said, hopefully there are enough signs for both players here within reach that it won't be impossible to figure out where things are, as Carp, as he has been zoning in on the right road. And I think at this point he's sort of click counting to curves in the distance to maybe get like a better chance at getting a higher score.
Yeah, very unreliable for this, but I mean, he's got a minute left, and there doesn't really seem to be much else he can do, so you might as well use
Yeah,
it
well,
to try and get somewhat closer.
yeah, there's only so much you can do in a situation like this.
Yep.
But here we're past 3 minutes in, Carp has gotten 499 plus, which is very impressive on this road in particular. Whereas in that time, Heddicmi hasn't actually opened the map at all, hasn't searched for any of the things that he's found or may not have found.
He's also not found anything particularly useful, but to me it feels like, I mean, I wasn't watching his screen that intently, but it just felt like he was going back and forth the whole time. It didn't really seem like he was going very long in one direction. And he, as a consequence of that, he hasn't really found much too useful information. I think Svilionis is a town that you could find, but he's not looking in even remotely the right area, so he's not going to in the
Yeah, and
remaining
with
5 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, with 10 seconds left, he seems to be like relatively locked into this general area and is only scanning at a very close zoom, whereas it would have been better perhaps to zoom out a bit further and look in different parts of the country.
Yeah, it did actually travel quite far, so I don't
It was
know.
so close to, yeah, that actual like reasonably sized town down there.
Yeah, and quite frustrated by that, as you can see there. A little bit unlucky, I guess, in maybe going the wrong way for too long. But I don't know where exactly the sign was that Carp found that pointed him to a very big city, because Carp found that sign very early. So I feel like Heddicmi must have gone past it somehow.
Yeah, I thought our Carp was also like choosing just to stop for very little time on the signs that he did see and just like go as fast as he could down in certain directions. Whereas we did see Ezekmi stopping to maybe focus a bit more on the things that he did see. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's what we were talking about during the round, right? In this case, Carp's strategy paid off a little more.
yeah. So quite a big gap now between the two of them, but again, still it is Lithuania. There is still hope for another 2 rounds. So let's see what round 4 brings us now. And I mean, I can't actually tell. That is paved, isn't it?
Maybe.
I think
No, I
so.
think it is. Like, yeah, it contrasts with dirt.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's not paved recently, but it has been at some point.
yeah. I believe that the location that they started on was near a curve, so potentially possible to get a decently high score if you can find the right location. The trick is, can you find the right location?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is some signs here, and I think these are some more of those signs where it's like if you've practiced a lot, you'll probably recognize some of these towns, but again, they you know don't seem to have. So they are of the size where it's like, okay, if you spend 2 minutes looking for them, there is a chance you'll find them. They're not like super tiny, but at the same time, it's not going to be easy to find them, and it's a risky move to try to.
Yeah. I will say when I was playing, I hadn't actually heard of them either, and so when I saw those two town names and I saw that they were like both within 10 kilometers away, I was like, yeah, I'm probably not finding these. So I just like went down the road like in both directions for like 3 minutes straight. Spoiler alert, I didn't find much, but it's possible that the players might.
Yeah, I mean it's reasonable to assume that because this looks like a decent road at least, that there might be some information. You can see there, okay, Carp just saw them as well. The cities are there, they show up reasonably quickly. So he's chosen that strategy and it has worked. It's always a bit risky with, towns that are like 8 kilometers away because they can just be towns that you just are not going to find. But he has got it and should now be able to pretty much maybe not get a perfect score, but close enough to it while Heddicmi continues traveling down this road. And I mean, there's still hope that there will be some signs, but he certainly won't be having too much time left once he does find, or if he does find any.
Yeah. And the rough thing about this too is that the locations where these places are is sort of on the border between Lithuania and I want to say like Poland, Northeast Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so like I don't know about you, but when I'm playing Carp drops 5 points but gets a pretty good score there. He won't be too sad about that. What I was saying was when I start scanning, like whenever I try to have a system, it's rare that I go for like the extremes of the country first. Like I always
Mm.
miss towns that are like on the border of the country. So that might add a layer of difficulty here. And it feels like Heddicmi might follow something similar, given that it was tough for him to find something in like the northeast corner of Lithuania in the last round.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more tricky to find like really these border towns. The moment you get like 10, 15, 20 kilometers away from the border, it becomes a lot easier. But for towns that are right on the border, I have noticed similar before. It just they're not easily spottable. Sometimes they get hidden by the border too, where they just don't show up until you zoom in quite far. And yeah,
Yeah.
Heddicmi, only 25 seconds left. It does look like he's coming up to a town that might be a little bit on the bigger side, but yeah,
Yeah, this is where the decision making comes in, right? Like you're so tantalizingly close to a town that looks like it's going to be big enough that you'll find clues, but you have such little time left and the movement is so bad in this case that it just might not be feasible. So here Hidikmi chooses to go back and start scanning with like 10 seconds left. It's not going to be enough, unfortunately, and loses another essentially 5,000 points
yeah,
on that location.
unfortunate for him. Yeah, as you said before, I'm not sure there would have been good information. Well, I say good. I mean, Carp's information was kind of good, but kind of better information anywhere within an area that they could get to in those kind of 4 minutes that they've got.
Yeah, the eternal question is just how do you know when to use the information that you have and how do you know when it's better to go looking for more information, you know?
Yep, it's a difficult question, and it's mostly just getting a good feel of the country. I feel like that is one of those things where if you've practiced Lithuania, if you've played like 20, 30, 40 maps of Lithuania, you will either recognize those cities or you can say, okay, I don't recognize those cities, so I'm not going to find them. And I'm going to have to continue looking for something else. The more familiar you are with something, the more you will know whether a clue is going to help you or not, which is, very important knowledge. Not just for Lithuania in particular, but basically for everything in Geoguessr to know whether a clue is good or not.
Yeah, that's why I'll always recommend practicing before a round like this, even if it's just the practice, like some practice is always better than none.
Yeah. Now you never know what random thing might come in handy later on. It's just like even as we talked before about which signs to look at or not, that is also something you just know when you play the map a couple of times. You'll realize, okay, I've seen this kind of sign 7 times before. It's never helped me, so I'm just not going to look at it anymore. That just saves you time in the long run. But there is still one more round. Unfortunately for Heddicmi, he is now outside of the range of where he could get any points for this. If everyone in the division has played quite badly, might still be a chance for a bonus point, but again, even that seems pretty unlikely at this point, so he'll just be looking to maybe try to finish the seed on a high note as we get into
Yeah.
round number 5 now.
Yeah, but also the players don't necessarily know that, so there's no reason not to really give it your all here, especially
Yeah,
since total score is like a tiebreaker as well. Anyways,
absolutely.
we start another rural dirt road. Surprise, surprise.
Yes, who could have expected that? Um, they are traveling in opposite directions. It's always difficult to tell when someone uses the new compass, what direction they're going in.
God, how I hate the new compass with a burning
Yeah,
passion.
same.
But if it can be useful in cases where like you need to determine like what is true north or what is like true east or something like that. But aside from that, I just don't find it very intuitive.
I feel like with like even half decent look at the compass, you are able to do that either way without um the new compass. You might be a little bit quicker with it, but just the second it would take me to realize whether looking west would require me to turn left or right, that it's taking me longer in the new compass than on the old one would already invalidate the second I might be saving and orientating it exactly north or south.
Yeah, I also just am so used at this point to like looking at the compass that's just like showing you a direction as opposed to like having to look at a letter and then transposing that letter to a direction in your mind. It's just like an extra cognitive step.
Yep, absolutely. And
Any
Yeah, it seems like they're both not finding much so far, but Carp has made it to a paved road, which might be a little bit more useful compared to what Heddicmi is going through.
Yeah, they're not finding much, as you can tell by the fact that we spent the first minute and a half talking about compass directions.
Yeah.
uh, but like at this point, there's very little you can do other than just continuing to go for it. Like Lithuania is a country that's so small that landscape guessing is pretty much like either going to be ineffective or just like tough if you're not in one of like two specific landscapes on the extremes of the country.
Yep.
So the best thing you can do here is I think just keep going down as fast as you can. And it looks like both players are also just like holding true in the respective directions that they've chosen at the start of the round.
Yep, which is definitely a good thing for Carp, maybe less so for Heddicmi.
Yeah, like Carpier's already found a town is going to like has some locations. Like there's a town on that sign that's 15 kilometers away, you know.
Mhm.
Um who knows if that's going to be super helpful. Or maybe it's not. Carp has decided that it's not going to be helpful and has continued on. Heddicmi is still lost in the Lithuanian countryside.
Yep, he is. As Carp just went past the most useful sign there was, although he just went, back and saw a road number, which might be equally useful if he can find it.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like with going fast, like I know Carp as a player pretty well. He's a really good scanner, and he has a tendency to sort of like barrel down locations. But like I mean, I do this too. But when you go down a road as fast as you can, looking for like things that catch your eye, you'll miss clues here and there. Um,
Yep.
and that's where a more careful player like Heddicmi might be able to get an edge. But unfortunately, this seed just hasn't lended itself super well to that kind of strategy.
Yeah, Carp, unfortunately, there with his going too fast, also missed one of the more important clues, which was a sign towards Kurjanai, which would have told him much quicker. It's like right behind him on his screen. You would need to take like one step north, but he's not seeing it. So he also missed the town name, which wasn't too small on the map of Drasuchiai. But even with that, he's still gonna get 2,500 points more than Heddicmi, and even before that, yeah, there really was no trouble for him with the seeds. If he had played against someone who had found that last round, which definitely was possible for Carp to do so, might have cost him a little bit more, but as it was, 22,547 points for him and 10,379 for Heddicmi, he was never really in any danger of losing this.
Yeah, and I mean he wouldn't know that. And after Carp played before Heddicmi, so Heddicmi knows Carp had to wait a little bit. In the end, didn't make that much of a difference. Carp has been a relatively consistent player throughout the season. Heddicmi maybe experiencing a few more ups and downs, as maybe has been reflected by their performances in the seed, but pretty good match nonetheless. Started off strong, but in the end, the last couple rounds, Carp really took it with potentially the instincts and the playstyle that may have benefited him in this map in particular.
Yep, and that will bring him another victory. And we hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for doing so, and we'll see you guys again next time. Till then, bye.
So yeah.